Joining us this morning is security expert Dennis Amachree. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Let's get your thoughts first about the shadow government. We've had Professor Pat Utomi, who's come to talk to us about the fact that this government mirrors what an actual government looks like, just that they're standing to investigate and criticize where there are loopholes in the way that the government is being run. But the DSS doesn't seem to approve of it. But let's get your thoughts about it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. You see, I can relate to what the frustration of Professor Pat Utomi, where he felt that he should bring up a shadow government, just like is being practiced in the United Kingdom, to counter, what the government is doing, because he felt that it is not right. And of course, he has alternatives, but he has forgotten that what he's trying to do is illegal. Illegal in the sense that our Constitution does not allow for that. The Constitution of the United Kingdom allows for a shadow government, which of course is a set thing, Her Majesty shadow government. In fact, that's what it's called over there, which operates and everybody recognizes it. But we are operating a presidential government, which has established checks and balances and, of course, established three arms of government. And these three arms operate without any other kind of government. I know that Pat Utomi used to have a think tank, or should I say a TV show where Patito's gang or something like that.
Yeah, Patito's gang.
Now, yeah, these can be a pressure group against a democratic government. But when you are trying to form a government, then I think the DSS have the responsibility, to, of course, challenge him on that. Now, I even congratulate the DSS with the new leadership they have there, because if it was they are following the rule of law by taking him to court. If he was arrested directly, people will start to make a lot of noise. But what he has done is illegal.
Okay, Mr. Amachree, the Nigerian Constitution does allow for freedom of association. Do you think this might just be an issue with the nomenclature, the naming, the use of shadow government, because they don't have the instrument of power, they were not elected, and everybody knows. So is the DSS making a mountain out of a molehill?
No, there is no mountain out of any molehill, because the Constitution is very clear. Section 1, established, the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Supreme law of the land. Section 2 also established the framework of government. So the framework is right there. We have legislative, we have the judiciary and the executive arm of government, and these are standards. You cannot have a shadow government in the United States. It's illegal.
So
but of course, the United States have a lot of...
Is the problem, if he changes the name, if he doesn't use shadow government and calls it Patito's group, and still does the same thing,
I told you
alternative
earlier.
Policies, will this be fine with the DSS?
I told you earlier that Pat Utomi used to have what he called the Patito's gang on TV. I don't know whether you've seen that.
I used to watch that. Yeah, I mean.
Okay, very good. Those are pressure groups. Here in the United States, you have a lot of pressure groups that operate. And of course, some even are lobbyists. They go to the Congress and lobby the legislators on how to change laws or do other kinds of things. And that is what is obtainable in the kind of presidential system that we run. It is not a freedom of expression or freedom of association. That is okay. But here you are actually forming a government. If you call it a different name, okay. But what he actually called it was a government. So that's a different story altogether.
So the problem herein is with the name, because we know that he does not have the authority of the government. He does not have authority to execute any actual policies. So the problem is with the wording.
Yes, I agree.
All right. I mean, let's look at the Section 1, Subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which I'd love to, read out as amended. It says that the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall not be governed, nor shall any persons or group of persons take control of the government of Nigeria or any parts thereof, except in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, of course, which we know has to do with elections and so on and so forth. This clearly spells out what you have said and the kudos you've given to the DSS for quickly stepping in to uphold this section of the Constitution. But then again, Mr. Pat Utomi, he was here with us. He spoke deeply and said that he's ready and said to go. And just a few days ago, he said, if I die, I die. Meaning that he is hell-bent on ensuring that he proceeds with this shadow government. And he made mention that there would be no interference. But of course, they would just act, as the name implies, shadow, to ensure that they can continue to be a pressure form of government to the current administration. Do you think that Mr. Pat Utomi is pushing too much to become, a martyr of change in Nigeria today?
Yes, very, 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 very true. I think, you see, a lot of people feel that if they don't agree with the government, the best thing is to try and protest or do certain things, and of course they beg for the DSS to arrest them, and that will make them popular. I've talked to some of my former colleagues and, some people that will be making noise in the media or, leave them, because I think that's what they are looking for. There is no need to arrest anybody. If this particular situation, it does not call for a death sentence. Nobody's going to kill anybody. If the DSS wants to kill Pat Utomi, I don't think they will take him to court. So, it is laughable that he feels that, somebody's going to kill him. He has already made his mark in Nigeria. So I believe that, as much as he has made his mark, he should be able to follow the simple rule of law, and there is nothing there for anybody to try to kill him, because that's the next thing you will hear now. They are trying to kill me, they are pursuing me, and then now, all kinds of things will be following the situation.
But what really is the main concern beyond the name? That's a conversation that could have been had with him. Why is his DSS not seeing this just as political posturing as opposed to the way they currently see this as a threat? What exactly does this shadow government threaten?
You see, one thing is this. It is not when people do certain things, the DSS itself is established to, maintain national security. And by maintaining national security, they protect the country's independence and decision-making authorities, okay? And there are certain infractions that people will make. And when they make such infractions, the DSS can call them, talk to them, or take them to court. Because, you see, we've been saying, the rule of law. Okay, let's follow the rule of law, whereby, Pat Utomi should not be scared of anybody disturbing him or killing him. He should go to court, and the court, I am very, very sure, is going to tell him that what you did is against the Constitution of Nigeria.
I mean, we've seen parliamentary systems where, of course, shadow government can thrive in a parliamentary system like you've also mentioned in the UK.
Yes.
But here we do have presidential system where, you know, there's no room for a shadow government to take place. So, I mean, we've been able to dissect this. And in other words, I mean, as journalists as well, and having read through and seen systems where shadow governments are allowed, we've seen that, yes, there seems to be a bit of, you know, conflict with trying to institute, in quotes, a shadow government in a presidential system. And you've highlighted that. But my question would like to focus on the DSS. The DSS has taken the first step to, you know, go to court. Prayer is in court. They've also gone ahead to, you know, make announcements to Mr. Pat Utomi not to, you know, go through this line. What would you say would be the next fundamental step for the DSS to take if Pat Utomi, who is currently saying that he's hell-bent, is going ahead to ensure that he pushes for this shadow government? What do you think the DSS should do as an experienced and retired security expert that you are?
The DSS has done what it's supposed to do. That's taken him to court. You know, it has other alternatives that it could do. You know, he could have been arrested. And then, of course, we won't be talking on TV here. In fact, he will be answering questions in the DSS headquarters, okay? But they've decided, following the rule of law, to take him to court. And if he's bent on going ahead with whatever he wants to do, the court will decide. If the court decides and tell him now that you cannot do it, you have to stop, you know, and he goes ahead, that's contempt. I think it's out of the hands of the DSS. And of course, the courts themselves will pursue it.
Now, has there been any precedent, looking at Nigeria's recent political history, of this sort of move of forming a shadow government? And what are the dangers of this sort of shadow government? And why is the DSS very concerned about this?
Well, there has not been a shadow government in Nigeria, you know, but we've had, you know, some people that have declared a government of their own, like the Biafra case we have, you know, which is a different thing. That one is treason because you are planning to break away. It's the same thing. The Constitution has set up a country and you want to break away from it. So those are two different things, and of course the court will decide, you know. But shadow government, we've not had any precedent on that.
So maybe, is this maybe another case where we should just wait and see how the court decides? Because there are those who would argue that it's not illegal because they don't see how it's actually usurping constitutional authority, because there isn't any clear, very direct provision that declares it illegal. Well, it might not be a system that's supported because we run a presidential and not a parliamentary system of government. So maybe the right course of action would be to wait for the court to interpret what the correct way out of this is, maybe.
Well, we will all wait for the court to interpret, but at the same time, what they've done, what Professor Utomi had done, according to the Constitution, okay, let me put it this way, it's unconstitutional. What he has done is unconstitutional. And if it is unconstitutional, then it is outside the rule of the law.
But
so,
I guess the
court will decide and they will tell him.
It's the court that would interpret if it's unconstitutional or not. Because all those who look, the courts will look at the merit of the case. He's not swearing in members. He doesn't have the instruments of office. He doesn't have a chief justice. He doesn't have a parliament. So,
well, he might have one of those actually. It's just they don't have.
You forgot to add, it doesn't have a police.
It doesn't have a police.
Because
so,
these are other instruments of government.
So if
it doesn't even have police.
Yeah, so is the DSS not wasting state resources by pursuing someone that doesn't have the the instruments of government? You know, realistically,
you are taking it wrongly. You know, that's not what is happening, because the DSS is constitutionally mandated to protect the country from threats that could appear on other kinds of things. You know, somebody threatening the constituted authority, or somebody, you know, trying to form a different government, you know.
But we asked Mr. Utomi on this platform.
In the United States, I'll give you an example. In the United States, they believe that there is what they call deep state. You know, that is a form of, you know, government, or should I say some kind of influencers that are operating in the background, you know, and they try to influence what the government is doing. But in a democracy, you have all this kind of thing, and they are not obvious. You cannot say this is their office, or these are the members. You know, this one is in charge of transportation. This is in charge of this or that or that. You know, but what Pat Utomi had done is go ahead and appoint people. You know, these people were not elected; they have to be elected. So, and he called them a government, unelected officials who are governing Nigeria. I think the court will decide. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that just reading that constitutional provision, the DSS was quite correct in nipping this in the bud.
So how do we find that balance again? How does the DSS find this balance? And I'm going back to a question that my colleague had asked earlier, between freedom of speech, freedom of association, and then how does it find that balance between that and protecting the national integrity of the government?
Yes, there's a very, very thin line. There's a very thin line. Freedom of speech, people are free to say whatever they want to say. In fact, in Lagos, I think there's a park in Lagos where you can go and say anything you want to, against even the government.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that place.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's a park. All right. Freedom of speech, freedom of association, you can form parties, you can form associations, organizations and stuff like that. That is there. But when you start forming government, then you have crossed the thin line. You've crossed that line. And that's what he has done. And of course, it will be interpreted properly in court.
Okay, Mr. Amachree, we'd like to go on a break now. We'll still, like to have you on the program. This conversation, I believe we've been able to milk at least about 85% of this conversation. I think we have a little more, 15%, but I'd like you to stay with us. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, the conversations on the shadow government continues. What if Professor Pat Utomi decides to have a similar shadow government like that of Iran? We'll talk about that in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. You're still watching Breakfast Central. We're taking a look at the shadow government as proposed by Professor Pat Utomi. Our guest is a retired DSS, and of course you could say a security expert who has been speaking with us right from the early hours of the 8 o'clock hour. We're looking at the implications of having a shadow government. You would recall that the DSS have come out to state that it is not acceptable because Nigeria runs a presidential and not a parliamentary system. Shadow governments are also used or done or implemented in countries like the United Kingdom, not forgetting to Canada and the likes. So let's bring you back, Mr. Amachree. Thanks once again for staying with us. But my question is one that, we've touched on the other aspects. My question is taking us back to what's happening in Iran. In July 2024, Iran did have an election where they had a president emerge, but it seems like the opposition, which happens to be Jalili, was not impressed. I'm talking about Sahid Jalili, who was not impressed with the outcome of the elections, and he went ahead to propose a shadow government like what we're seeing now. And clearly, it's not also acceptable under the Iranian constitution. But there are rumors that he's going to have that shadow government outside of Iran, which brings me back to my question to you. what if Professor Pat Utomi decides to have a shadow government not within the confines of Nigeria, but outside of Nigeria? Would that still be a big case for the DSS?
Of course. He's free to form any kind of thing he wants. We've had examples like Sam Ekpa, who formed a shadow government in Finland, and that's his right to do, and he has done it. But at the same time, Nigeria is not going to welcome him with an open arm. What is happening in Iraq right now? The militias, they have even penetrated that government in such a way that some of them are even in the current government of the president. So they are pushing, but of course, they're in the shadows. They cannot actually come out. He has invited the security agencies to start arresting and prosecuting them, and of course in Iraq, they don't, the rule of law is out of the window there. So some of those people arrested could even be killed. You never know. So it's not the kind of thing that I think I expect Professor Utomi to do, because he was a former presidential candidate in Nigeria, well-respected intellectual, a thought leader, and we believe that, of course, he has made a mistake, and I think he can correct it. He can still carry out his objectives, but it has to be in line with the rule of law.
But is there any risk for the people who are going to join him in this shadow government? Because while he was here, he made mention that some of the participants are from Labour Party, the PDP, and other political parties. As a security expert, these names, although not mentioned fully, would they all equally be at risk should they, decide to join this movement?
Well, they cannot be a part of an illegal government. So if they are part of an illegal government, of course, they will also, have something to answer to the law. So yes, if any of the participants are found to be part of it and they are operating, yes, the law will come for them.
All right. Anyway, I think some of these points have definitely been touched on. But since you're here with us, we'd like to move a little bit, backwards to some of the security issues that we are currently facing as a country. And it's obvious that the current administration would not want to add more on its plate. I'd like you to talk on the security aspects concerning some of the states that Nigeria is indeed some of the states in Nigeria are currently faced with insecurity issues. I'm sure you are aware of the statements made by Borno State Governor 2 months ago. He had come out to make mention of the increasing insecurity in the state. There was also a video that emerged sometime last year where he was traveling along the Borno Coastal Road, Borno Highway, I beg your pardon, and he had to stop with his convoy because there were certain, gunshots, attacks here and there. And then just last month, he came out to say that he needs help, that Borno State is being, besieged by, insurgency, criminals, and so on and so forth. If a governor has made certain remarks repeatedly, what do you think the number one citizen, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the security forces should do to ensure that they come to his aid as soon as possible?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. You see, Governor Zulum, of course, came out, with what was happening to people in his state. In fact, 3 of his local governments have been taken over by bandits, Boko Haram. And you see, immediately the president even came back from his travels. He had a meeting with the heads of security agencies. And then, of course, he had told them to go ahead and then, of course, take care of this. We've heard about this before, where the president, even the former president, will come and say, go and take care of it. And it, they go ahead and keep on fighting with these bandits. Now, we have discovered that these bandits, some of them are just not just the Boko Haram, but people that are coming in from outside the country. It is being strengthened by ISWAP and the Islamic State of West African Province. It's not only just for Nigeria, but they are sweeping all across the West, Western Nigeria, west coast of Africa. So these guys are loaded, they have weaponry, and what we believe is that the people, the security agencies will be given enough arms and ammunition, equipment to fight this. Because I can tell you that they are so sophisticated, some of them are now using drones to monitor our military. Okay, we are also supposed to, have predator drones to deal with this, because I believe that we cannot play kids' glove with these guys anymore. And predator drones can be deployed, but they are very expensive. And what is our people doing? The legislature will, of course, make their pronouncements, but release the money to the security agencies to go and do what they have to do.
Now,
okay. This is a case. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Amachree, you mentioned the legislature. The National Assembly is planning a 2-day summit, security summit, to address insecurity in Nigeria. Critics of that said, it might just be another talk shop, and you will be discussing issues of national security in the open. So what's the point? Do you agree with those critics, or you feel Nigerians will feel a difference? There will be results after that National Assembly Security Summit?
I have mentioned it in other fora that a security summit at this time is just of no use. It's of no use. It will end up being a jamboree. And of course, we have a lot of reports on security summits that have been held before. Why don't we go back to those reports and implement them? Because I don't like the approach that our legislators are taking about this security issue. Security is a very expensive thing. Factor, and when they are doing the appropriation, we expect them to realize that they have to give them the real money. I know some people will say that, yes, the defense budget is the highest in
exactly what I was about to mention. If money is really the problem, because defense always tops, the budget. And so where is the challenge coming from?
Yeah, defense budget is the highest in the country, but you can go and ask the police, DSS, army. Most of that money does not trickle down to them.
Where does it get missing?
Okay, now we've finished. We are going into the second quarter of 2025. How much have they released to these people? They've not, and you'll find out that. They after a while they will call them, come and explain to us. But when they go there, we need this money. One drone, a predator drone, is about $23 million. Then you give them some money, and then you expect them to create magic, So security is not taken seriously, because, believe it or not, Nigeria is under siege right now, and our armed forces should be well equipped to deal with these people, because it's not just Boko Haram. We should realize that too. We have foreign armies, soldiers of fortune, who have joined these people, bandits, and they are trying to invade Nigeria, and we should be ready for that.
I mean, it's really sad to hear you talk about how expensive it is to fight insecurity, and how the monies that are being apportioned in the budget doesn't really get to do what it's meant to do, which then begs the question, where is the money? At what point Do we lose the translation of the money for what it was intended for? What are the consequences? And is the administration, or is the current administration really determined? Do they really have the political will to fight insecurity in the way that they say that they have? And whilst you respond to that, I also want you to talk about collaboration, how security agencies can collaborate with local forces in the fight against insecurity.
Well, I think you're right. One thing that is missing seriously is the political will. Political will. Now, look, we have been talking about state police, and we believe that the creation of state police will bring law enforcement down to the grassroots. The problem we're having in Nigeria right now is not a military problem, it's a police problem. You know, military are supposed to defend the country from external aggression. And these people that are coming in, this swap and all the rest, yes, military can go and deal with that. But the inside, the bandits, the kidnapping and all, that's police job. You know, but how equipped, how trained, how many policemen do we have, you know, that are doing law enforcement? You know, and of course, the police people, they are shortchanged by, you know, a lot of mopols who are supposed to be fighting forces, you know, giving to politicians and all kinds of local government chairmen, carrying them around when they are supposed to be doing the job itself. I don't know what is slowing down the declaration or the establishment of state police, because we need to do that. And of course, if we do that, the governors will be more responsible in the sense that most of the security votes they've been giving them has been their pocket money. Why don't you release this money and give it to the police, train them properly? You know, why even depend on the army or the federal government? You know, the state should be responsible. Get these people, train them, because after all, what's the difference between a soldier and a policeman? It's because of the different kinds of trainings that they have. You know, and the police can be more trained to deal with issues that are of internal security concern.
Now, Mr. Amachree, finally, before we let you go this early morning where you are, you did mention that state policing will be a good way to address some of our security challenges, but the government is not yet ready for that. But they've inaugurated something else. I don't know if it might fill the gap for state policing, or how you rank it in the scheme of security architecture. Forest guards, the government just inaugurated forest guards to chase away bandits and criminal elements from our forests. Traditionally, these forest guards are meant to look after endangered species and also prevent logging. So are they going to have to be retrained and armed with weapons that can address their current job description?
Well, you know, when I heard about them recruiting how many thousands of forest guards, you know, I laughed, because it's a joke. You know, it's a pure joke. I don't see why forest guards. Why don't you go ahead and just establish state police? Why are we running around? Why are we trying?
I mean, there's a lot of evil in our forest, and they need to deal with those evils. Abisa forest, for example.
I'll tell you this. Who are forest guards? Forest guards. For example, in Kenya, you have forest guards. In fact, because they have a lot of wildlife in their forest, in their wherever. And these forest guards are the ones that go around trying to stop poachers, people who are killing animals. You know, they are trying to protect these species that are going extinct. So they go there, and then, of course, they protect the forest. And, of course, some of them don't, if they arm them too much, maybe a double-barrel gun, And then, of course, what they do is to watch out the poachers. And when the poachers see them, they run away. Now you are recruiting forest guards to go and face bandits with rocket launchers, AK-47s, and RP5. It's just, I don't know who even brought that idea that, let's use forest guards to counter these people. These are not the right, that's not the right solution. The right solution is to create state police, train them properly, train them to be, like we have here, the SWAT. The SWAT are policemen, and they are trained in special weapons and tactics, and they go out to take care of even terrorists, so they can do it. But trying to hold down the police, using them for escorts, and then, of course, thinking, oh, let's push forest guards there. People will see us as doing something, Will they form the Amotekun, But Amotekun, we've said it. Train them if you really want them to fight. But they were created as hunters, going into the bush. And then, of course, if they see any of these bandits, they will come and report to the formal police or the army, who will go out and deal with them. We should try and order our priorities.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Amachree, thank you for your time with us this morning. We do appreciate it. We wish you a wonderful rest of the night.